Me now, Congresswoman, good morning to you. So it sounds like we're going to have to get used to hearing the phrase big, beautiful bill, because that's how Donald Trump wants his legislative agenda to pass, not split up into two or three, but one. So how do you feel about that strategy, and what can we expect to be included in it?
Well, I think it's the smart thing to do is to do one bill that really tackles the border issues as well as energy production in our country, perhaps defense, as well as the tax cuts that we want to extend and then build upon the success. I will say that right out of the gate, today we'll be certifying the president's election. In 2 weeks, he will be sworn in, and House Republicans are united. We met over the weekend, and we talked a little bit about the strategy and the process moving forward. And first out of the gate, I think you'll see legislation that will give President Trump's administration the tools to secure our border, but to also deport the criminals and the cartels who have wreaked havoc, particularly in cities like mine in New York, and also the tools to find the hundreds of thousands of missing children who have either been sex trafficked, being exploited, maybe involuntary servitude. So those are the priorities on the border front. And then we'll work on the energy production to jumpstart and make sure we're energy dominant again. And then the tax is so critical because we need to make sure we preserve those cuts that created millions of jobs, lifted middle class wages, brought unemployment to a record low. The president wants to do no tax on tips. We also want to see the tax burden on our seniors reduced. We'll be going, a group of us, to meet with President Trump this weekend to discuss in more detail some of the priorities.
Well, Congresswoman, razor thin Republican majority in the House. I can only imagine how much work is going to be spent on getting this bill to cross the finish line. Do you think it will be an uphill battle?
Well, there's no doubt that it's challenging. We have the slimmest majority in the history of the country. And obviously, when you have multiple members, you have multiple opinions. And so I think that's almost why we have to do a large bill like this, because we need to build consensus. Your border states and states like mine, we want to see that border security. Everyone in the conference does. Energy producing states wants to make sure that we're using domestic American energy for our national security and to create good American jobs. And then you have the SALT states, state and local tax relief is a big issue. So if we can build consensus by putting our constituents first and making sure we all deliver legislative wins for our constituents back home, right, I think that's how we build consensus to get this done. And remember, the last time there were two reconciliations was 1997 when Newt Gingrich was there, which is a much larger majority, and that's why we have to do one.
Okay, so Congresswoman, you mentioned it. Congress is going to certify Donald Trump's election victory today. It will no doubt be less eventful than January 6, 4 years ago. But notably, Kamala Harris is going to be presiding over the certification of her own election loss. So what can the American people expect to experience as this is going down today?
Well, hopefully she'll get the pledge right today, because that was a disgrace what happened last week. But what I'll say is, look, we have a job to do. We're going to get it done. I think that it's a massive snowstorm here in Washington, D.C. Yeah. Hopefully everyone will show up and get the job done, because we have a lot of work to do. The people have spoken, and we've already laid out the framework. We just need to execute at this point.
Okay, so Congresswoman, let's talk about something that is impacting your constituents directly, and that is crime in New York City. And the latest example of that is a man was just arrested after stabbing two people in the subway. Thankfully, those two people survived the attack. But he had 87 prior arrests, and his rap sheet includes attempted murder, weapons possession, assault, criminal trespassing, turnstile jumping, petty larceny. 87 arrests and still out on the street to harm more people. I am sure you have some thoughts on this.
Absolutely. Well, as we've said, the radical bail law that the Democrats in New York put in place continues to release people who should not be on the street. Andrew Cuomo closed about 1,000 mental health beds. So where did those people go? They're on the subway system. They're in the streets. What I'll say is, if you look at the stats before the bail law took effect, felony assault has increased 55% since 2019. We've saw murders more than triple. And I'm talking about the subway system alone, okay, since 2019. And you have real serious situations where you have about every 2 weeks somebody being pushed on the subway tracks in 2024. Governor Hochul needs to get this city and our state under control. Mayor Adams, by the way, was a transit cop, so he knows exactly what needs to be done to make our transit system secure. We are down about 8,000 cops than we were on September 11th, 2001.
Yeah.
That is so scary considering the terror threats that we face each and every day. The last time we had so few cops, it was in the year 1990. So they need to hire more cops to keep our subways and our city safe. And they just need to do their job. Instead, what she's trying to do is hit us with a congestion tax, which just went into effect yesterday. $9 toll to drive into Manhattan to try to push people on the subway system.
Right.
But people don't want to ride the subway because it's not safe.
Great
You want
point.
people to ride the subway, make it safe.
Good point
don't
all around,
tax
yeah.
them.
And the MTA says felony assaults on the rails are up 65% from 2019 to 2024. Congresswoman, we have to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us this morning. We very much appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.